So in New York, a court has stepped in and helped the Republicans in their effort to gerrymander their way into a congressional majority. Let's talk about it in today's video. Hi, I'm Mike Reiner. I'm a lifelong Democratic activist who's concerned about the direction our country is taking. I'm also a lawyer and an academic, and I'm here to help you stand up to the BS of the MAGA crowd. So in typical fashion, a New York court controlled by Democrats stepped up and declared that an aggressive, gerrymandered map produced by the Democrats in the New York legislature that would have granted the Democrats representing New York in Congress a lopsided majority was unconstitutional. Now, generally speaking, I'd be applauding that type of a decision because, in general, both parties should refrain from gerrymandering. The difference is that, in typical fashion, we as Democrats have tied our own hands behind our back, while the Republicans have no such qualms. Let's compare what happened in New York, where Democrats do enjoy a lopsided majority, and frankly, closer to the margins they'd expect than in some states where Republicans have taken advantage of their legislative majorities, often held on to because of gerrymandering, to create lopsided maps that favor their own party. Consider the case of Ohio, for example, a state won by Donald Trump in the last election by 8 percentage points, produced a map where out of 15 congressional districts, only 2 would be Democratic. Now, interestingly enough, Ohio had actually passed legislation through a referendum process that resulted in the establishment of a nonpartisan committee to draft a fair map, one that would not give some undue bias to one party or the other. Well, after the nonpartisan commission couldn't agree on anything, of course the legislature stepped in, and they produced 4 maps, each one rejected by the state Supreme Court. The state Supreme Court, by the way, which has a Republican majority. And yet the Ohio legislature refused to take the cue, and after banging their head up against the state Supreme Court a few times, they actually sued in federal court, where they got a friendly Republican judge, of course, to allow their map to go into effect in this election. So much for the will of the voters and fairness. Now contrast that with what happened in New York, a Democratic state again, where we have, again, a nonpartisan commission established that essentially ties the hands of the Democrats. As in Ohio, this nonpartisan commission, reflecting the polarized politics that we're seeing across the country, was unable to decide upon a map that they could agree on. Once again, the state legislature stepped in. However, here, when a state court said that the map did not meet constitutional muster, the Republicans in the federal courts were like, hands off! And rather than allowing the legislature to try to draw another map, the court itself appointed a political scientist, someone they call a special master, essentially a subject matter expert, to draw his own map that he pulls out of his butt, from what I can tell. This new map would reduce the Democrats' congressional districts from 22 down to 15, a little more than half in a state that votes overwhelmingly Democratic. A state Biden won in the last election by 23 points. And we see the same story again and again and again, virtually anywhere that Democrats control, like Maryland, for example. Courts have stepped in and stopped the Democrats from taking advantage of their position to try to essentially even out the damage Republicans are causing in states they control. And again, these are all states where Democrats have huge margins. Contrast this again with, say, Florida, won by Donald Trump by 2.16%. Well, this state, which is generally speaking a true swing state, added 4 Republican-leaning seats to their map, resulting in only 5 Democratic seats out of 28 districts, and only one of which is majority-minority. Or you have Arizona, famously won by Joe Biden by about 3.8%, where the gerrymandered legislature has created a map where out of 9 districts, 2 are Democratic. And again, the courts just kind of let these things happen. The problem is the same problem we've seen again and again and again, which is that Republicans take courts seriously. They have been aggressive in establishing their dominance over the federal court system, and the Supreme Court in particular, and we can see the results. Democrats, on the other hand, well, we want to love the candidate. We want to feel their passion. We want to know that they stand correct on all the issues, not realizing that our lack of enthusiasm or intransigence is going to result in our rights being taken away from us and our democracy destroyed. It's time for Democrats to get as serious about the courts as Republicans are. And if you want to see any evidence of that, just check out what's going on with abortion. Why don't you check out this video over here that I did a little while ago about the court's involvement on the abortion issue. I'll see you then. In the meantime, Let's hope for continued progress. Thank you.